I'm joined this morning by Rebecca Hirst. Rebecca, thank you very much for giving up some time in your
Pleasure.
busy
Happy
schedule.
Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. End of the working week. I'm really excited to go through and kind of hear all about your journey to date, but a bit of context then for people who are going to be listening or watching this. So a really fantastic career, senior marketing roles, mix of sectors, so FMCG, technology, professional services, and currently you're Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at EY. And then I know you worked previously with Samsung, Coca-Cola, so some mega brands in your background. And a lot of recent awards. I was looking at the list that the team have put together. So Campaign 40 over 40 winner, Marketing Week, top 100 most effective marketeers, and in your spare time, a judge at Marketing Society Awards as well. So a very busy lady.
I got 40 over 40 when I turned 50.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So I was, we were catching up prior to kind of hitting record on this, and I was explaining that the reason we started doing these in the first place is for our heads of who are aspiring to be chief ofs, and they're really curious as to, what was your journey? What were the highs and lows? How did you get where you are today? And what advice can you pass on? So maybe the easiest place to start is, would you mind sharing a bit about your career journey and kind of what's led you to where you are today?
Oh, yeah. That's nearly 30 years worth of career journey, so I'll keep it brief. I started the first chunk of my career in advertising. So I'd done marketing and French at uni, and I came out of uni, I'd done my fourth year in Lyon, and I got a call from a friend who was a publicist, or publiciste, if I'm saying it correctly. And there was a job going in the account management team, and I thought that'd be an amazing way to kind of use what I'd learned on my kind of business degree, because there's a massive chunk of marketing in there, and my French. So I then spend the next 10 years in advertising, so publicist into Leo Burnett, and then into another agency that was part of the WPP group. And then I switched because I was working on airline business, so airline accounts including Lufthansa, United Airlines, Star Alliance. And September the 11th happened, so you can imagine what happened to the sort of airline advertising industry at that point. There was a massive kind of pause, and I thought this is a perfect opportunity really to go client side. So for 10 years I'd loved working in advertising, but then I got frustrated because I wanted to see everything that went on behind the brief. I wanted to know about, packaging and product design and supply chain and all of those things. So I moved client side to Kimberly-Clark, which is the best place to learn brand management, like 101. You're in paper mills and you're talking about supply chain and all that kind of thing. I worked on Andrex and Kleenex and got to work with like lovely fluffy puppies on ad shoots, which was great. So Kimberly-Clark to Coca-Cola. Now, Coca-Cola, in my view, is one of the best places in the world to be a marketeer. So 7 years at Coke. And then from Coke to Samsung, so client tech, launching amazing devices and technology to the world. And then from there to EY, which was a bit of a left turn in terms of industries, but it's been absolutely fascinating. And maybe we'll talk about that, like left turns in our careers and how helpful they are. So that's like the last nearly 30 years in about 3 minutes.
Wow, so you've made some big sector moves. You've worked with some big brands, but you've made some big sector moves within that as well. Let's talk about the left turns in the career now, if you like, because what was the pull and the attraction into professional services?
There wasn't one.
Fair enough.
So when I wanted to leave Samsung, I was leaving on a high. I'd agreed with my boss that I was going to exit. I can talk about that. It's a really nice way to leave an organization because I'd felt I'd done as much as I could at Samsung, and I was on a mission to open doors for women in technology. That was my mission at Samsung. We can talk about that if that's helpful. But when I got a call from a recruiter about a job at EY, I literally said to them, I'm the wrong woman for that job. Like, it's so far removed from how I self-identified, because I was an FMCG marketer and a tech marketer, and the two are quite similar, actually. I think tech and FMCG. I never ever saw myself as kind of a professional services person, which is really interesting, right? We have this sort of perception of ourselves. And I thought that to be successful and to get to CMO, I needed to stay sort of linear. I was expecting to leave Samsung and go to like a Meta or a Google or an Apple, and that's where I was interviewing. I got this call and she said, just come and have a chat with the person who's hiring. It's like, all right, then I've got nothing to lose. And what was really interesting was that I met somebody, he became my boss, who painted such an picture of an opportunity, a blank sheet of paper. Like, we need you to come and help, bring EY's marketing up to the present day. We need you to figure out what the right team structure is, which agencies we use, how we go to market on some big new propositions, how we do digital, the whole lot. And we're going to double the size of our business in the next 5 years. And I was like, whoa, I could go and do something similar and like a little step up and the same sort of sector, or I could basically take this opportunity, which is come and sort everything out for us, and we want you to do it. And I said, I must have had about 5 or 6 interviews as part of the process. So I said at every single interview, I'm the wrong woman for this job. I will be a round peg in a square hole. And they went, great. So it's not an interview technique I would recommend, that you're kind of telling them you're the wrong person for a job. But I was like, this is not me. This is so not me. And I'm going to be ruffling some feathers. And they were like, that's what we need. I was like, okay. So I hence find myself in professional services, and I've just had my 4-year anniversary at EY.
Well, hats off to them for being so forward thinking in their process as well, though, and being open to people with different backgrounds and kind of wanting to make that change. So was it the challenge that really attracted you then in terms of,
Yes.
making big change?
Yeah, it was absolutely the challenge. And one of the things I realized as I've got older and kind of moved on in my career is what drives me is challenge. And I think it was challenge that attracted me. It was also chemistry with that person that I met who became my boss. And I just felt then first nanosecond I met him, you and I will get on. Like, we can work together. He's like 100 miles an hour, like, people flailing like as he wades his way through. It's like there was nothing that was going to stop the ambition that he was setting. And I know he doesn't do it solo, right? This is an enormous organization I now work in. There's almost 25,000 people in the UK in EY. But that I could almost like feel the energy of that ambition. So I think chemistry is really important to me now, but also culture. And I don't think you ever know an organization until you're in it, but EY's culture was important to me at that moment in time. I'd come out of Korean tech, which is amazing in many ways, but also a very tough, fast-paced, million miles an hour culture. EY, in some respects, is similar, but also I knew that it had a reputation for being a good place to work, like good on D&I and values, and supporting both the community and the people within its organization.
Culture, I think, is so important. Funny enough, we've been meeting to discuss that this morning, because as a team and as a business, our approach is very much, when we do our interviews, we do 2 stages. One is around technical fit, but the second one's all around culture and chemistry fit, because it's fundamental, but it's also quite intangible. I think it's probably the most important element of a hiring process for the candidate and for the client, but it's quite hard to define at times. How did you assess, as you went through that process or previous processes, that the culture was right for you?
That's a really hard question, and I don't think there's any way of almost like putting a framework around that. I think it's instinct, honestly. I think it's gut feel. I did a TED talk on gut instinct as an aside, but anyway, I trust my gut instinct. And I think sometimes we've probably all been in this situation. You go to an interview and you don't feel particularly energized by that conversation or that process. You go to another interview and you come out buzzing, like you can't stop thinking about it, and it kind of keeps you awake for a bit. You're like, oh my God, that was so exciting. I think the way that I read culture will be based on that sort of feeling. And that is the feeling that I got in every interview in the process at EY. Because if I came out buzzing from 6 interviews, probably be like almost like overkill, be like, it's too much. But definitely those first few with the people that I would be working most closely with, my boss and then his boss, I got such a sense of dynamism and ambition, and they wanted me to bring some changes. So I think I go on that more than anything these days.
Do you look for culture? You look for challenge, change?
Yeah.
And you're clearly naturally curious as a person, with the answers you've given so far. It's that kind of curiosity that's taken you from the different roles or the different brands as you've moved through your career.
I think as I reflect on my career now that I'm 50, the biggest growth I found, the biggest when I look back and I'm like, God, that was a really good experience, has come from the most challenging situation. So I also didn't want a job at Samsung, ironically. I'd left Coca-Cola. I took a redundancy package because Coke was going through restructures pretty frequently. Again, a big organization. I think this is my third restructure in the years that I've been there. And I said, look, I'm going to take a package because I wanted to set up my nutrition business on the side, Glorious Wellness. Did that for about 6-7 years. And whilst I was doing that, I was bootstrapping Glorious Wellness. And I got a call from a friend who was at Samsung who said, I need your help. Come and help me. I was like, I don't want a full-time job in, technology. Thanks very much. He went, just please come and help me just a few days a week, be a freelancer. So I agreed to go and help a few days a week doing like the stuff that was too hard. He just needed someone to he was the CMO at that point, hand it over to. So I went into Samsung thinking it's two or 3 days a week. It's cash flow for the new business. Because anyone who set up a new business, cash flow is everything, right? Yeah. So it was helping me bootstrap Glorious. And as I went into Samsung, thinking I don't really want to work here, it's going to be interesting, might learn some stuff. I then got invited to a corporate away day, and it was one of those sort of in a field in Hertfordshire in a teepee on a beanbag, and I was sitting in my beanbag watching a presentation from the big boss, and he was saying how he was really sort of struggling with the fact that Samsung wasn't attracting the female millennial kind of target audience. And how like that was the next sort of chapter for the brand. They needed to do that. And then in the next breath, he talked about this amazing technology that he'd just been to Korea to see, and he was talking about what it was, and this was the project team. And then he showed a picture of the project team, and it was all men, all in their 50s, all in suits, either Korean or Western. And I was so cross. It made me so angry. Like the hairs on my arms stood up. And as I kind of hoisted myself out of my beanbag at the coffee break, I went to tap this man on the shoulder who had no idea who I was because I was a lowly freelancer kind of in the cupboard under the stairs. And I said to him, look, is it any wonder that you're not attracting the audience that you want and the consumers that you want when this is who's making all of the decisions? He said, well, come and help me change it then. And I was like, oh, what have I gone and done? And he ended up being my boss because my friend who was there moved on and the role came up. And I knew with every fiber in my body that my job was to go and change that way of thinking and to open doors for women in that organization at that time, but also to reflect what society was in their marketing. So I kind of took myself into a job that I knew it was like black and white, I had to do it. So there's kind of a pattern here about the growth and the exciting jobs have come from when I've just like, I've got to go and do it. It's a really big, gnarly challenge here.
There's a pattern, but you've also put yourself in the situation and said yes to things,
Yeah.
and that it's both those things combined. And when you look at some of these brands you've worked for, like Samsung, Coca-Cola, there must have been some amazing highlights within those roles. Would you share a couple with us?
Oh, there's two that will be, I think, my career highlights forever. Maybe I can add some more to this, but the two that always spring to mind. One is when I was at Coca-Cola, working on the London 2012 Olympics team. So I basically worked in the Olympic Stadium for all of that summer, which was, I mean, we lived in a crew hotel. So we lived in a hotel in the middle of London on shift. Yeah. So we did night shifts, like we were working 24/7. But what an experience that was to be like right in the middle of the action. So that was amazing. And the second career highlight was in my last year at Samsung, I was invited to open the show at something called Unpacked, which is when we launch, still say we, I'm still part of the brand, when we launch new phones to the world. And this was in San Francisco. And it was that was such an amazing thing to be asked to do because usually it's a man, it's either an American or a Korean man. Yep. It was unheard of for it to be a Western woman. And they're like, will you come and open the show? And they'd seen me do like smaller events and I'd done well in those. And they said, come and open Unpack for us. So I was the first person on stage in front of 3,000 tech journalists launching like one of these folding phones. Z Flip, still a fan now. Z Flip to the world. And it was bittersweet because when my boss phoned me and said they want you to do it, we knew that I was kind of exiting Samsung. We'd had conversations about, succession planning and what I was going to do and who would replace me and that kind of thing. And he phoned me and said they've asked you to open the show. I'm like, but we both know that I'm leaving in the next 6 months or so. Like, what should I do? He went, get on that stage. You have earned the right to be on that stage. Everything you've worked for has been about opening doors for other women. Get to San Francisco. And so with his support, but also all of the people that I worked with over the years, I'm like, if I can do it, I'm like, this northerner who's on stage in San Francisco, if I can do it, you can do it. So I left on a high, and I was proud that I'd done that.
I love that. I love that. And it sounds like you've done a lot for helping pave the way for women in business, women in marketing. How do you see that working over the next few years? What else can we all be doing to continue that journey, if you like?
Well, for me at Samsung, it started with opening doors for women in tech and in marketing, to like help people around me. When I moved to EY, I realized that I needed to kind of broaden that as well. So to be a voice and a supporter and ally for diversity in all of its forms. And I'm really now proud to be a mentor for EY Foundation, which helps young adults from free school meals backgrounds get into the world of work, because there's some really awful statistics about if you come from a free school meals background, you're more like the 50% likely to be more unemployed by the age of 27 than if you're not. And I come from a free school meals background, like my single mom, she had 4 kids. We didn't have a penny like spare, and so I had free school meals from junior school right up until A level, like literally till the day I finished my A levels. And I think I had people help me on the way, and I've so appreciative of that if I can help other young adults like 16, 17-year-olds to access this weird corporate world with its kind of strange habits and things, then that's a good thing. So I will continue to champion and be an advocate for women and for anyone that I can possibly be an advocate for, but I'm very, very passionate about helping young adults from free school meals backgrounds too.
Good for you. And it sounds like EY have a number of projects that they support. You're saying that you mentor on that program.
Yeah. And that's, I think we were talking about culture earlier, and it's intangible until you start to live it. But the tangibles of culture at EY are things like having days that you can take to go and mentor, like on top of your holiday. EY Foundation, it's called EY Foundation, but it's an independent charity. EY is the biggest patron, so hence we kind of get the title of it, but it's a completely independent charity, but we are encouraged to give time and expertise for charity. So things like that, I think I always say with mentoring, I get back way more than I give. So to work with, I'm working with a young guy at the minute, who, I mean, I learned so much about his world, and he teaches me so much about looking at things from a different perspective. I think it's amazing. I get tons from it.
No, I think this is such a rewarding thing to do. Good for you. Slightly different kind of set of questions now, because I wanted to talk a bit more about your kind of skill set, and particularly strategic leadership. So I know, in terms of the roles that you've done, so it's marketing strategy, a really kind of deeply honed skill of yours. And I just wondered, as you look externally, other companies as well, what do you think might be some of the common themes that companies look at with regards to strategy going forward over the next 2-3 years?
So I think from a strategic point of view, the way that I always think about it and approach it, and the way I talk to my team about strategy, is that it's almost like I have to pivot, and I help them to pivot from being like chief marketing officer to chief clarity officer, because in an organization like the one I work in now, but ones I've worked in before, Samsung or Coke, they're big, complex, matrixed organizations. And it's often so easy, particularly I think for marketing teams, to be pulled in a million different directions simultaneously. So I think the job that I can help with most is establishing where do we make where can we make the most impact for the business? And getting super clear on that. And that can evolve, right? It's not set in stone. When I joined EY 4 years ago, we set a 3-year strategy. We're now redoing that, and it's sort of it's kind of not ebbed and flowed. It's kind of we've had to tweak it each year because of changing, the market's changed dramatically in 4 years. So I think knowing with maybe absolute's too strong word, knowing with as much certainty as you can possibly muster how you make the business grow, where are the growth areas, how will you measure that, and how do you celebrate along the way is probably the biggest job to do. And the other thing for us to think about, and this won't be new news to anybody, but again, as marketeers, it's super important, is what's the long term and what's the short term. And I talked to my team about what is jam today and what's jam tomorrow, because there are, some specific sales sprints that we're doing now to hit our H2 numbers. Like this is like fast paced, turn it around, like now. But we also know that we're building our reputation in new areas that are going to support future growth. So we can never kind of do one without the other. We always have to keep that balance. So I think from, strategy perspective, clarity, how are you adding value? How are you making the boat go faster? Get super clear on that. And again, this won't be new news to anybody, but often the metrics that we talk about as marketeers, no one else gives a monkey's about. And I nearly swore then. So get clear on the metrics that make a difference for the business and talk that language.
And on that kind of planning forward, what do you think might be some of the other key priorities that will be featuring on CMOs' to-do lists, if you like, for the year ahead?
Well, I think there's a flip side to that, needing to be super clear about what the longer term plan is, because as an example, this week, like with the context of what's happening in the world, business is needing to adapt really quickly and to figure out what that means. So, for example, with the conversation coming out of the US on trade tariffs, that has really big implications for a load of businesses. So, for example, we have this week, literally in the space of this week, turned around a webcast, which is happening today, for hundreds of our clients, talking about what are the implications of potential trade tariff with these organizations we've worked with that have multinational kind of global organizations. There's huge implications. Now, that wasn't even on our radar like 2 weeks ago. So I think one of the things that's really important right now, particularly with the things that are happening in business, the contextual stuff is to understand that and figure out if there's ways that your business needs to react or respond, or to reaffirm what you already do and what you believe in. DE&I is another hot topic right now. So I think there's a requirement to be focused on how you're making the boat go faster and the end game, but also right now the stuff that as brand leaders we need to be helping our organizations respond to.
And you've got to be flexible and able to adapt quickly. You're not the first person to mention that this week, actually, in terms of their chief execs have been speaking to, where actually to do with the US, but fundamental announcements and changes has meant that they've very quickly had to kind of react and communicate with their customer base. I explained at the beginning that a lot of this was set up so we were kind of sharing with the heads of and people who aspire to be CMOs. What advice would you either give your younger self when you were a head of, or what advice would you share with heads of out there who are listening to this thinking, I want to get to that chief of role? What do I need to do to put myself in that position?
I think number one is to own the fact that you want it. So I was having coffee with someone that I used to work with at Samsung the other day, and she reminded me, we went to a sort of women in leadership training session together, and she said to me, I remember it was years ago, you put on your list that you wanted to be CMO, and I put on my list, and I won't say what she said because it was personal to her, but she said, you knew then that you wanted to be a CMO. I was like, I don't remember doing that. And I can't believe that you remember me saying that. She said, no, you were really clear about it. So I think if it's something that you want, you have to own that. You have to write your 5-year vision.
Yeah.
You have to put it on there in a way that it's already happened and that you are, and believe that it's going to be, right? So intention is everything, I think, in this. But from a practical perspective, I think the thing that I would say has been most useful to me is to not think about it as a linear journey. Excuse me. I've taken some zags along the way, whether that's been changing industry or doing something that I didn't think was really my next career move, like at Samsung. But it's those things that have actually been most useful in getting me to where I was going to be. So I think if you look at Helen Topper and Squiggly Careers, it's
Yep.
almost like getting to CMO, and my journey at least has been the epitome of Squiggly Careers, is kind of going on a few zags and having some really interesting, challenging, stretching opportunities along the way, which made me ready to go, you know what, that CMO job, yeah, I'm ready for it now.
I'm with you all the way on the owning it in terms of what what it is that you want and being able to visualize it. And I don't know whether you do a similar thing, but each year I actually build a vision board. So a digital one, but with all of the images for the year ahead. And interestingly, looking back last month on the kind of the year before, absolutely astonishing in terms of the fact I delivered everything on my vision board, but some of the real images off the back of things that had happened were almost identical to the ones that I put on the vision board. So I think the power of that is, and I'd really encourage people to think about that in terms of, what are your goals? And they're very personal. You don't have to share them with other people, and you don't have to share the board with other people, but what are your goals, dreams, plans, etc., and actually to visualize that with images and have it as your screensaver, have it up on your wall in your home office, but have it on an inside of a wardrobe, but wherever you want to put it, but somewhere that you're going to see it every day. It's really, really powerful. So that brings me nicely onto mindset, because we talk a lot about I believe in the power of a positive mindset. And if you could see all the books that I've got around me, Tony Robbins and Napoleon Hill and all sorts of people, it's I think it's fundamental, but you have to kind of work. You have to work on your mindset. You're extremely positive. I know you've got certain sort of rituals and things that you follow, but have you got any anything that you would recommend from your personal experience?
Oh, I love that question. I could talk for hours on this one. I'm a huge believer in wellness, and what a word, right? It's you can interpret it in many different ways, but for the 6-7 years that I was running my coaching business called Glorious Wellness, one of the things that was driving me was that I was surrounded by amazingly talented people who were mostly borderline burnt out. And my job as a coach and nutritionist was to help them get to their best brain power, their best energy, their best physical self. Because I believe that we can be way more effective in business when our bodies and our brains are working well. Because you think about marketeers, right? We live and die by our energy, our ideas, our creativity, our ability to see like across these organizations and figure out where the interesting things are. And you can't do that if you're running on empty. So one of the things I live and breathe in terms of having a strong mental kind of mindset is looking after the physical. So I say to my team, when they see me, I never ever eat lunch at my desk. In 4 years at EY, I've had lunch at my desk once. One of my marketing team, my leadership team said to me, "You all right?" I'm like, if I don't eat this now, I'm not going to eat all day. It's one of those days. But the rest of the time, I never eat lunch at my desk. Is a really simple example. I diarize exercise. I'm happy to like shut off and not pick up my laptop over the weekend. So there's things that I do to keep my brain power good. And I've gone through that process of I feel a bit guilty for knocking off a bit early to go and do a workout. But I'm like, you know what? I'm actually way more effective if I do all of that.
Yep.
So it's an absolute, non-negotiable for me. And I like challenging that as well. So I took up horse riding in my late 30s and I took up CrossFit when I nearly turned 50.
Is that what you do? Is that your go-to exercise, is CrossFit?
Well, there's three now, which says a lot. I've kind of gone through all of the main exercises. I've run marathons, I've done triathlons, and I've given all of that up now. I'm a bit older, but I took up horse riding because I wanted to do it in my sort of teens, but my mom, as I said before, was raising 4 kids and there was no spare money. So when I said to her, "Can I go horse riding?" She's like, "Get out on your bike." So when in later life, when I was thinking about it, I've always wanted to try horse riding, and Nick, my husband, said, "Well, try it then." I was like, "Why don't I?" And so I bought myself 10 lessons and thought I'll try it, and if I love it, I'll carry on. And here I am, like 10, 12 years later, still doing it. So yeah, I took up horse riding as a kind of response to not being able to do it as a kid, I think. And then I also do weight training because now that I'm firmly in menopause, I found that weight training is really good for, just feeling strong and helps with osteoporosis and stuff. And then CrossFit, because it's so funny. There's so much, people take the mickey out of each other so much. There's so much camaraderie. I can't do half the things that they do because I'm not a natural gymnast and I can't swing from ropes. But the whole like group dynamic, I really enjoy it. So I get a bit of everything across those three. I probably ebb and flow into something else in the future, but they're my three at the minute.
No, love that. Absolutely love that. I have made a promise to myself that I will do Pilates this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that I have to be honest, it has. I love all things outdoors, anything water-based or hiking, coast path running, anything outdoors basically,
Yeah.
and sort of very physical. The idea of Pilates has zero appeal, but whenever I see someone who looks in fantastic shape and I say, "What's the secret?" It's always Pilates. So I am going to do it. I'm like you, I might book a course of 10 and just see how I get
See if you
on.
like it.
I've got to do it. But CrossFit quite appeals as well, especially if you say it's a good kind of
It's
group.
fun and it's so welcome. I mean, it's got a slightly scary kind of reputation, but it's so welcoming. And there are people, there's a young dude who's probably 16, 17, and there's someone who's in their 70s. Like it's everything in between, and you do what you can do, and it's always so, you never know what you're going to get when you turn up, and they're like, "This is what we're doing." You're like, "Okay, fine, just tell me what to do, I'll do it."
Right, watch this space. I might give CrossFit a go as well. I've definitely promised myself this year that I will do exercise. I mean, I love exercise, always
Yeah.
have, but do exercise that I enjoy. So I think that's the main criteria. I'm definitely not a gym person. Recognize I need to do the weights, but my natural setting is outdoors. But yeah, watch this space. You might see me next time having
Yeah,
done.
tell me about Pilates then. If you try it, tell me what you think.
Yeah, I'll have to persuade you to do it too. Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. Fabulous answers to the questions. And very best of luck with everything that comes your way.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.